On the 13th of April 2015, Eileen Hayes of Reenogreena, Glandore, Ireland, died at the age of 85. Eileen was the last of the Reenogreena Hayes to live permanently there. The Hayes family have lived at Reenogreena in County Cork for over 200 years. Initially, they lived on the side of the hill in stone cottages along with 20 other families and were predominantly fishermen. However, in 1938, they moved to the top of the hill into a cottage built by the Irish Land Commission. By this time, nearly all the families had left and the stone cottages below had become ruins. The remaining Hayes family became farmers of a small holding on a few acres. There are many Hayeses in the area, but our particular family are often referred to locally as the Casserie Hayes, which I'm told means hairy or red hair. When we sorted through the house after Eileen's death, we came across numerous old family photos. The oldest of these were presumably sent by members of the Hayes family who had emigrated in the early 1900s. This video concerns these pre-1930 photos that are the earliest Hayes family photos that I'm aware of. I will cover the many other photos in later videos. Hi, I'm Peter Hayes, one of the many Reenogreena descendants of the Hayes family. In order to make some sort of sense of these photos, it's necessary to have a brief history of the family. Dennis T. Hayes was born in Reenogreena in 1816. He was my great-great-grandfather. Dennis T. married Mary Hayes, no relation, on the 29th of January 1852. They had 11 children. Dennis T.'s eldest son was Jeremiah. He was born on the 1st of January 1853. Jeremiah also married a Mary Hayes, no relation again, on the 31st of January 1988. They had 9 children between 1889 and 1907, namely Kate, Dennis, Ellen, Michael, James, Mary, John, Julia and Jeremiah. This is the generation that I'm primarily focusing on here. Of the 9 children, 5 emigrated to America, beginning with Kate in about 1909, followed by Ellen, who was known as Nellie, in 1912, Mary in 1921, James, known as Jimmy or Jemmy, I believe, in 1925, and finally Jeremiah. 3 of the children remained in Ireland. John, also known as Jack, Julia, and Dennis. I know the history of John and Julia because they stayed at the family home in Reenogreena. I know very little about Dennis at the moment. Michael, the 4th child, emigrated to Great Britain in 1917 by joining the British Navy after a recruitment drive in Kinsale. This is pre-independence, of course. Michael was my grandfather, hence the link. This is the family tree on what I would call the 2nd generation Hayes, which would be my great-grandfather, which is Jeremiah Hayes, born 1853, and great-grandmother Mary Hayes, born 1869, and their children, the 3rd generation, which would be Kate, Dennis, Ellen, Michael, my grandfather, James, Mary, John, Julia and Jeremiah. These are the generations that I'm primarily dealing with in the first set of photographs. So the first photo that we have is the wedding of Kate Hayes and Tom Purcell. Now, we can date the photo to a degree because they married on the 29th of April 1914, but the photo, in common with many of the early photos, is very obviously a studio photo. So it may have been that they had the photo done on the day, or it may have taken place a little bit later, but it would have to be around that sort of period. The two witnesses at the wedding were Kate's sister, Ellen, who's known as Nellie, and Tom Purcell's brother, William, known as Bill. Now, later on, in fact, in 1927, so a number of years on, Nellie actually married Bill Purcell. So the two Hayes sisters married the two Purcell brothers. The Purcells came from the difficult to pronounce Pulafuka, Carron, County Clare. So they were both Irish as well. The next photo is, I believe, of Nellie. Now, it's very difficult with these photos to actually be 100% correct because there's no writing on them, there's no marking on them or anything else. But it looks like Nellie to me, and why else would the family have a photo of some random person? So I think this is Nellie. I've got photos later that are actually categorically Nellie, but I think this is the earliest photo of Nellie. I would place that at around 1914. Now, Nellie actually emigrated in 1912, and interestingly enough, she actually sailed from Queenstown on April the 14th, 1912. Now, if that date is sort of ringing a few bells, it's probably because the Titanic sailed from Queenstown 2 days earlier, April the 12th, 1912. So Nellie had been in New York for around 2 years, I'm guessing, when this photo was taken. Now, the next photo, I think, is Nellie again. I'm more certain of this photo. Nellie, when she has her photo taken, always looks directly at the camera. She's got quite a confident look about her. And if you actually look at her eyes, you can see that the left eye is slightly lower than the right eye. Now, this in itself isn't any great significance, but if you quickly have a look at my eyes, you can see I've got exactly the same characteristic. One of my eyes is lower than the other one. Now, I'm guessing if you're a relation of the Hayes, that at some point you're going to look in the mirror today and check yourself out and see if you've got this family characteristic. But I believe this second photo to be Nellie. I'm guessing on this one around 1916. The next photo I can't be 100% sure of, but I think it's Billy. Billy was born in 1918, one of a pair of twins to Kate and Tom Purcell. So that's Kate, the eldest Hayes daughter, and Tom Purcell. I think this is Billy. It looks like Billy in all respects. Now, Billy was one of a pair of twins. He was born with Elizabeth, but more of that later. The next photo, no doubt whatsoever about, this is my grandfather. The date I will have to guess on, but looking at him, I'm guessing this is 1918. He was born in 1895, so he would have been 23 at the time, and as I said earlier, joined the British Navy. The next photo, taken around about 1918, is of Tom Purcell with his wife Kate, formerly Hayes, and their children in 1918, which is Nora, who would have been aged round about 3 to 4, and twins of Billy and Elizabeth. This is obviously another studio taken picture. This next studio picture is Nora. I believe probably her first communion. Obviously, it's a big day if you're a Catholic, as the Hayes all were and still are. So this would be her first communion. The next photo is on its side for a reason. It's one of the few photos that actually has names on it. So across the top, Kate and Billy, that will be Kate Hayes, Kate Purcell, and her son Billy. And then across the bottom, Nora, Kate's eldest daughter, Mary. Now, I believe that this Mary is Mary Hayes, Kate and Nellie's sister. She emigrated to America in 1921, when I believe this picture was taken. So I think it's highly likely that that is Mary. And lastly, it says, and myself, and I think that that is Nellie. So if we turn the picture up the correct way round, we can see the three sisters and Kate's two children in a backyard somewhere, I presume in New York. Now, what's interesting about this photo as well is that it's obviously been taken outside with their own camera. So I am guessing, because there's three photos taken in this garden on the same day, that this was a new camera, perhaps because Mary had come over and she was the first one to emigrate since Nellie had in 1912, so some 9 years earlier. And this was a cause for great celebration, and so a camera was bought. You can see the aspect ratio of the camera, the height and the width. It's quite a tall aspect, and this is common with many of the Hayes photos. Now, as an aside, there is a camera at Reenogreena, an old Kodak from this period, which took many pictures around Reenogreena. So I'm guessing that perhaps this could be one and the same camera. Now, the next photo is in the same garden, and this is with Nellie and the two twins. This is Billy and Elizabeth playing in the garden there. Now, the final picture is taken from a similar angle to the last one, and it's Nellie again, this time with Elizabeth. So this next picture is of Nora's first procession. We know this because it's written on the back. And first procession, I believe, would be as the priest enters church. He's flanked by altar boys, and I can only assume in America they included girls as well. So this would have been a source of great pride for Nora's parents, Tom and Kate, and obviously for Nora herself, all dressed up. So they obviously marked this occasion with a studio photograph, and from going from left to right, you've got Elizabeth, and then you've got Bill, and then you've obviously got Nora. I have no idea who the older girl is in the back of them. Just not a clue on that front. So I can only assume perhaps a family friend or somebody of that sort of ilk, or somebody who shared in the day, perhaps. It's a bittersweet picture because it's a very happy family, and the parents must have been so proud of their children. But it's the last photo that I have, very sadly, of Elizabeth, because she died of pneumonia, aged 3 years and 2 months, on the 18th of November 1921. It must have been devastating for the parents. She looks such a lovely, delightful little girl, but infant mortality was sadly quite high in and around the city of New York at the time. So bittersweet. The next photo is of my grandfather, Michael John Hayes. I think he's a little bit older in this photo, so I'm guessing this was taken in something like 1920 or 1921. It was a tiny little photo that we found of him, that we've blown up a little bit. So he would have been aged around about 25, 26 when this photo was taken. The next photo is of my grandparents getting married in June 1923. So that would be Michael John Hayes marrying Jane Alice Skinner. Now, my grandmother was always known as Jean, but I think she was christened Jane. She had a very attractive sister called Laura, and I think she always felt a little bit overshadowed by Laura, and she didn't want to be seen as a plain Jane, or at least that's the way my dad told me the story. Now, in the wedding photo to the far right, that is Grandpa Skinner. That's my grandmother's father, and then Nana Skinner, as we would know her, next to her husband. And then on the left of my grandfather, I think that's Harry, who was very tall. He was my grandmother's sister, and I think next to Harry is Laura. Now, the woman sitting at the front on the right with the flowers could also be Laura. I really don't know which one is which there, and I don't know who the young boy is or the older woman and gentleman on the left-hand side. But this photo is definitely June 1923. Now this photo, this is Bill Purcell on the right-hand side. He would go on to marry Nellie. This is Tom Purcell's brother. Now, the other two in the photo, I've not got a clue over. The only thing I can say is that there seems to be perhaps a family resemblance between the older gentleman on the left and Bill Purcell on the right. Certainly the ears are pretty prominent, and the shape of the face. And also looking at the nun in the middle, I am wondering if possibly there's some family connection between all three of them. Now, I'm guessing that the photo was taken on top of a building in Manhattan or New York or somewhere. It certainly isn't Ireland. But that is Bill Purcell. Date, I'm guessing something like 1921. I think Bill Purcell was born in and or around 1893. So that would make him around about 28 at the time. Now, this photo, I have to confess, is one of my favourites. You can't help but not love Nellie. There really is something about her. There she is staring directly at the camera again, as she always does. And she's dressed in what I believe is a tram conductress's uniform. So she was obviously working on the buses or the trams at the time. It's a fascinating photo in so many ways. The background, the New York background is interesting. But if you look just to the left of Nellie's head, you'll see there's a gentleman standing behind her in fairly close proximity. And then to his left, there's a boy staring as well. So my assumption, and this is purely a guess, is that cameras weren't that commonplace at the time. So they must have caused a bit of interest and a little bit of a stir wherever they went. And when pictures were taken, people just stared at the person taking the camera, not really comprehending that they were, in fact, sort of photobombing the picture itself. There's numerous instances of this in Ireland, where the camera must have been even more obscure to the local folk. But it's a great picture. I'm guessing, and I can't be 100% sure of the date, but I'm guessing sort of early 1920s for this photo. Now this photo is of Kate and her children, and this initially confused me before I realised about the sad death of Elizabeth. So obviously Kate Hayes, Kate Purcell in the centre. You've got Billy, the surviving twin, and Nora behind her. And then you've got her next set of twins. She had another set of twins. And that is Frances and that's Rita. Now, Frances and Rita I found difficult to locate in records, but fundamentally because they were both called by their second names. Frances was in fact James Francis, and Rita was in fact Marjorie Rita. So they were a bit tricky to find at first. So to reiterate with Kate, she originally had Nora, then she had twins Bill and Elizabeth. Elizabeth sadly died, and then she had a further set of twins, Frances and Rita. And this is obviously taken, it looks like a beach to me, or it looks like they're on some sort of sand, or perhaps it could be grass, hard to work out, and a lot of people in the background. I should also mention at this point that Kate went on to have a further 2 children. She had Edward in 1927 and she had Eileen in 1932. So she had a total of 7 children. I should perhaps also mention that within the family, Kate was known as the General. I think it's on account that she was very organised and perhaps a little bit bossy, but then if you've got 7 children, you probably needed to be. This next photo is Ellen, Nellie Hayes and Bill Purcell. So Nellie and Bill got married in 1927. Nellie was born in 1892 and Bill was born in 1893. So by this period, they are some 34, quite late to get married in many respects. Now, they obviously knew each other because they both were witnesses at the wedding of their siblings, namely Tom Purcell and Kate Hayes back in 1914. So we always knew that the Purcells had married, 2 Purcells had married 2 Hayeses, but my assumption had been that it would have been much closer together. So I'm really not sure why there was such a delay. On the wedding certificate, which we were able to download, interestingly enough, they both gave the same address. So read into that what you will, but they both gave the same address out. So perhaps they were living together, who knows, at that time. But I'm guessing this is 1927. It may or may not, have some connection with when they got married, but they look around that sort of age to me. So that's Bill and Nellie. The next photo is back in England. I'm guessing it's Plymouth because the chap on the left-hand side is my grandfather, Michael John Hayes, who looks thoroughly pleased with himself. Really does look like the cat who got the cream. And the lady in the middle holding the baby is my grandmother Jean. And the baby in question is my father Rodney. So my dad Rodney was born on the 5th of April 1928. So I can accurately say that this photo is 1928, and as I say, I'm guessing Plymouth, that's where they lived at the time. Right, the final section is I don't know. So this fearsome gentleman, I really don't have a clue who he is, but he was in with the other photos at the house. The next picture could be Nellie and Bill Purcell, but I'm not convinced. It's a very strange sort of pose in a studio. This little boy could be Bill Purcell. the son of obviously Tom and Kate. Again, I'm not sure. And this final picture could possibly be Nellie, but again, I'm not sure. So if anybody out there has any ideas, write them on a postcard, or better still, put in a comment down below.